All right, good morning, committee. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a pretty lengthy agenda today because we have all of the university presidents and the chancellor here today to give us an update on higher education. So to give them the due time, I want to go ahead and get started. I know we'll be having some members trickling in because we did run a little bit late in calendar this morning. The first item on the agenda, are there any bill introductions this morning? Representative Walsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 25 RS 1579. It's an act concerning nursing workforce development relating to nursing schools and setting a maximum education levels for instructors at nursing schools as a requirement for state approval.
All right, committee, you've heard the bill introduction. Is there a second? Second by Representative Francis. All those in favor of the bill introduction say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, bill is introduced. Any further bill introductions? I actually have one. It's 25 RS 1599, and this is an act concerning courts relating to court fees and costs. So there's the bill introduction. Is there a second? Second by Representative Estes. All those in favor of the bill introduction say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the bill is introduced. All right, so the major item that we have on the agenda is the presentation by the Kansas universities, and I will have to apologize. I will have to step out at 9:30 because I have to attend a hearing in Senate Tax, and I'll try to get back as soon as I possibly can after that hearing has concluded. I just wanted to make that up front so when I leave, it's not like I'm being abrupt and just exiting the room. So the first individual that we have would be from Emporia State University, and that would be President Ken Hush. President Hush.
Thank you for the invitation to speak. Certainly want to respect during all the presentations over the last a month or so, I've been lower down the line, so time is restricted. So I'll try not to do that for your colleagues, okay? So 10 minutes, we'll make it at that and try and be efficient. As you have in front of you, you have a one-pager. It's with, you asked for major appropriations. We've listed 7 of those. 3 of those, as you might recall, demolition funds, capital renewal initiative, and student financial aid are available to all of our universities. So it's just what we have used in those areas. I will just simply open it up for questions. We have done quite a bit from our side. Primarily around when we walked into what we discovered we had 3 years ago. We had a large number of buildings on campus that were empty, underutilized. So we attacked, the first one, demolition funds, we attacked optimizing those buildings. We are in the process, we have torn down 2. We're in the process in the next 24 months tearing down 2 more. We've sold 1 building in addition to that. Our nursing initiative and program was on the regional Newman Hospital campus for decades. They advised that they wanted that property back. So we had to move that back on campus, and hence the nursing initiative and building that building for $15 million. So that has been a lot of what we've been doing. Obviously, that has positive effects on the deferred maintenance over the next 24 months. Our deferred maintenance for the last 3 years and for the next 2, our deferred maintenance is going to be down 20%. Space optimization will improve by 15%, so we're targeting those efficiencies. And again, those obviously have dollars that are coming back in savings from an operational standpoint. With that, are there any questions? You have it. I know you typically don't get a lot of time to ask questions. I'm the last guy you probably want to hear speak, so I'll open it up.
What we'll probably do is just hold off the questions till the end. So committee members, if you have questions, jot those down and then ask the particular president or chancellor at the time that we open up questions.
Okay. Perfect. The first 3 are aligned in sync with the KBOR strategies. Like I mentioned, facility strategy of KBOR, and optimization of the assets for the respective university. Affordability. Just to use the nursing as an example. 2 years ago, we asked, because again, we had to move this nursing program back to campus. We didn't have the space, so we had to tear down a building and scramble to do that. It was a $21 million project. We had some initial injection of funds. We asked 2 years ago for $15 million to bond. Okay? You approved that. Thank you very much. What we did, we didn't stop there. We spent the next 12 months, I was told initially coming into this job by Cable, don't ask any money for buildings or renovation and certainly anything around athletic buildings. So that's the direction we took. We hit the road after you approved the bonding of $15 million and raised record gifts. Long story short, we announced last year that we didn't no longer need the $15 million bond. We had paid for it. Okay? What that means for ourselves, ESU, and the state of Kansas as a state, it saved $8 million in interest, okay, over that period of time. It also, taken it one step further, is it avoided a student fee of probably $450 a year for students over their time. So that's another example of an efficiency that we passed through. Through your help last year, switching gears, the student union, which was an amount that you had provided last year and approved, and it was done the same for another university a year before. What that did was that has been removed. That's also eliminated $250 of fees from the students themselves. We've done a lot of other things throughout our campuses, and as we create efficiencies and savings, we're passing those on immediately to the students and their families. With that.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. We'll go ahead and move on, and like I said, we'll have questions later on at the appropriate time. So the next individual that I have is the president of Fort Hays State University, Dr. Tisa Mason. Madam President.
Good morning. I do have some additional information, just if you want to peruse it afterwards, and packets over on the shelf. I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to share how recent legislative appropriations are impacting our campus and our online students at Fort Hays State University. Founded in 1902, our commitment to distance education began in 1911 with correspondence courses, followed by face-to-face instruction in our regional community starting in 1920. In 1998, we offered our very first online courses. From early on, we recognized that many Kansans seeking post-secondary studies live in rural communities at a distance from Hays, are place-bound because of family or work obligations, or have specialized interests best achieved from the comfort of their own desk or kitchen table. Trying to advance the slide. There we go. Oh, it's back. Thanks to our state support, our social work program has flourished to include both bachelor's and master's degrees on campus and online. I especially want to express my gratitude to Representative Barb Wassinger for assistance in addressing policy challenges that hindered the effectiveness of our program. Our social work program continues to expand, and our graduates are bringing this vital resource to rural communities, especially in western Kansas. Your $500,000 investment toward our Cybersecurity Institute and Technology Incubator has enhanced awareness and encouraged threat readiness as we cultivate our next generation of tech entrepreneurs. We provide diverse opportunities, including student micro-internships, capstone projects, and extensive faculty consultation services, all aimed at delivering cutting-edge business and information security solutions tailored for small and mid-sized enterprises. City operates basically through two key components: student micro-internships and venture creation. So over the 18 months, we have successfully designed and implemented our micro-internship program, which is yielding positive experiences for both our students and the businesses we serve. We're very excited about our capacity to support even more businesses and are developing strategies to attract additional clients. As we move forward, our focus on venture creation aims to incubate 1 to 2 innovative businesses each year. Our relentless focus on affordability and fiscal responsibility did lead us to seek $6 million to eliminate the student fee portion of the bond. That balance was reduced from $10 million to less than $4 million. The defeasance occurred in July of 2023, saving over $800,000 in debt service payments and over $2 million in interest. And I want you to know that that reduction in student fees has been maintained to date. So on behalf of our students, thank you for this remarkable opportunity. Last year, the legislature provided startup funds to build a sustainable solution for our state's mental health needs. This program serves our rural communities by offering training to practitioners to reach those who live in rural areas more effectively. In the past 7 months, we have created badging and certification curriculum, cutting-edge technology, and training protocols for practicing telehealth professionals in Kansas, and a comprehensive telehealth certification program that meets ks.gov standards. We offer both self-paced and instructor-led for credit and not for credit, and our instructor-led courses will launch next month. 7 months into this program, focused on serving Kansas businesses and employers' workforce development needs, we have worked with approximately 500 learners to enhance their skills. Area organizations such as Midwest Energy, Next Tech Wireless, Barton Community College, Kansas Farm Service Agency, City of Hayes, Sunflower Electric, Smith County Memorial Hospital have already benefited from this continuing education effort. Fort Hays University strategically accessed the $3 million investment from the state, demonstrating our commitment to maximizing value and fostering student success. We've approached these funds with a dual focus on short-term wins and long-term sustainability. A prime example of our responsible stewardship is the renovation of our cadaver lab occurring this summer. In addition to the dollars you provided, we secured a $50,000 grant and $100,000 in philanthropy to match the state funds allocated to the renovation. With a specialized focus on rural nursing, Fort Hays continues to deliver. Post-COVID, our nursing program has continued to grow. We are serving more than 600 majors in nursing. Our commitment to nursing education is evident through our partnership with the Kansas Community Colleges, formalized by an MOU which guarantees admissions for students who complete an accredited nursing program, making it easier for aspiring nurses to enter our program and continuing to the healthcare workforce. The success of our program speaks for itself. Our first cohort in the Doctorate of Nursing Practice achieved an outstanding 100% pass rate on their licensure exam in 2020, a standard that every subsequent class has upheld. Additionally, we're proud to report that our Bachelor of Nursing in Science students received a remarkable 100% pass rate in 2024, an increase from the previous year's rate of 95%. To sustain this momentum and increase the number of qualified nurses in our communities, we are very grateful for the legislature's investment of the $15 million towards the expansion of Stroop Hall. Construction documents for this critical project are currently 30% complete, a planned submission of final documents by April 1. I'm pleased to report that the project is on schedule and within budget. The additional $400,000 investment will allow us to add 3 faculty members to address the growing instructional needs and 1 additional position dedicated to expanding the simulation experiences. Thank you very much for your support. Our mission is to ensure that Kansans have an affordable, high-quality education choice, regardless of their economic circumstances. We're not just affordable, we deliver value, but don't just take our word for it. The Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity set out to study the return on investment of a college degree in the United States. Across 27 bachelor programs evaluated, every Fort Hays program provided a positive return on investment with an average weighted ROI of just north of $400,000. There's more information on this study in the packets that I mentioned at the beginning. And we thrive on adaptability. With diverse academic programs that reflect the needs of an ever-changing job market, we equip our graduates with the skills and the knowledges necessary to succeed in a competitive world, especially in rural communities. We established a banking institute to address critical needs in rural Kansas, guided by a board of bankers and in partnership with the Kansas Bankers Association to blend academic rigor with practical training. You can discover impact on our nursing, social work, and cybersecurity programs in our 2024 Impact Report and Advancing Economic Prosperity document in those packets I mentioned. Our focus is providing Kansans with job-ready graduates and our unwavering dedication to serving rural communities. Through our affiliation, we are tripling our value proposition to benefit students, businesses, and the very survival of the state's smaller communities. As a result of our drive for affordability, accessibility, and adaptability, and in partnership with you, last year on the high plains of western Kansas, we educated close to 17,000 students. Thank you for the opportunity to share the vital role our university plays in shaping the future of our students and our rural communities. By investing in higher education, you invest in innovation, workforce development, and economic prosperity. I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mason. We're going to adjust our schedule just slightly to accommodate for some other meetings that our guests are going to have to exit for. So I'm going to invite Dr. Dan Shipp, president of Pittsburgh State University, to come on up and give us an overview of how things are going. Okay, is he online? Oh, he's coming. Okay. Welcome, Dr. Shipp.
Hi, good morning. How are we? Very great. I have some good news to share in our slides. Recent investments that have been made at Pitt State and what that's leading to for our community. Let me do a, are you on my, you're working my controls, right? Oh, there you go. Oh, back one, you're good. That's all right. Okay. So it's a thank you to everyone for your recent support and what that looks like. Our mission at Pitt State is to make life better through education. And the funding that we've received recently has really helped do some amazing things. So last year we received $3 million of recurring funding, and it's really great to share that that's going to support right now 700 students and their families on our campus to help make Guerrilla Nation an affordable option for students, primarily Southeast Kansas, Kansas proper, and that's such a needed investment for our university. So think about that. Those are academic merit scholarships that are offered over a 4-year period. Prior to this investment, we were offering 1- and 2-year scholarships to students, and as we all know, to be competitive today, many students are getting 4-year packages as opportunities from different institutions. So this allowed us to take the step forward, which was necessary to be competitive. So now we have 4-year packages for our students and families. This is a really great story. And so last year, I want to thank you for a one-time $500,000 investment that allowed us to purchase some lab equipment that works in our labs that are focused on material science. So graphene, you know, I guess for a simple fellow like me from a small town, what that really means is it allows us to build better batteries. And so as we know within this state, that's a real big emphasis. And so with just $500,000, that investment in lab equipment, we've been able to attract a national player to Pittsburgh, Kansas. And so Eagle Pitcher is now relocating East Coast operations to Pittsburgh in our research park, our growing research emphasis around material science. And guess what? That starts this summer. And so sometimes I think it's easy to go, gosh, what did that 500,000 go to? It helped us attract that type of employer to the region that's desperately needed. What's fun about that is 80 to 100 high-tech jobs are coming to Pittsburgh, Kansas. So I want to thank the state, want to thank our partners within the city, but certainly wanted you to know that there's probably no better example of what an investment like that can do to make and strengthen your community. So thank you for that. And our faculty and our students that get to do research on material science, how that gets applied in the real world is a really neat thing to see in Pitt State. And another investment that I think is a real point of pride for us is to have $2 million that we've invested in a new facility that supports our Center for Reading, where we have national prominence. And what that really means is we've had faculty and staff for years working to improve reading competency for young people all over the state. We have about 450 families and students that come to Pittsburgh, Kansas to meet with our faculty in our Center for Reading. The current Center for Reading is less than ideal. I think that's me being pretty kind in terms of the facility that we have. As part of our investment in the city, we're helping to revitalize downtown. What we're doing is making it now possible for our Center for Reading to be relocated right in downtown Pittsburgh. So families and students from all over the state will be able to drive right up with their students and work with our faculty. So that investment is critical and really important to growing our footprint related to supporting reading competency across the state. So those were the major investments that I think are really good news, and hopefully you all feel that. We certainly are appreciative of your support and believe that it's making a really big difference in Southeast Kansas. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, President Shipp. We're going to just diverge a little bit from the agenda as well. You heard the chairman say that we would take questions at the end, but for President Shipp and for President Hush, we'll entertain 2 questions for either one of those. Committee, do you have any questions for President Shipp or President Hush? All right, Representative Howell. And please designate who you'd like to ask the question.
Sure. Question to President Shipp, if you may. So there's been some discussion in the legislature about this blueprint for literacy and whatnot. And since Pittsburgh State's been involved in this space for many years, why shouldn't the legislature just make Pitt State the lead on any literacy initiative in the state?
Representative Howe, I feel like you're setting me up in front of my friends and neighbors here behind me. Well, of course we should do that, right? I think it's important, and I guess I would say this, the geography of the state is a challenge for families and for students, right? So I do believe, so you gave my personal opinion on this, as somebody who's grown up dyslexic, right? It's important that we have centers throughout the state that families feel are accessible, right? And so we're in Southeast Kansas, and we do receive a lot of traffic in and around South Central, Eastern, Southeastern Kansas. It is a barrier for some. And I think as we build competency with our faculty across the state at our venerable institutions, it's important that we're all rowing together, right? And not just one institution carries that load. So I think it is a real smart idea and plan to have those centers spread across the state to support the entire breadth of the state of Kansas. My opinion.
All right, thank you. Okay, Representative Ballard, who would you like to ask?
Thank you. I will stay with you. I'm looking at your 2 million for your reading facility, and you indicated there were 450 families involved. Are they just from your community, or can they come from surrounding areas around Kansas?
All over, yeah. And in fact, we'll also see folks that come from international locations. And we had 2 summers ago, the governor of New Mexico brought her granddaughter to Pittsburgh, Kansas to work with our faculty. So it's very well recognized, very well known. A majority of all the work supports families and students in Kansas. But in our location within 4 states, right, it's also become a magnet for individuals who are trying to help their young people learn how to read.
I will follow up on that. We know that if you can't read, you also have trouble with math. You have trouble with all
That was
kinds
me.
of things.
Yes.
And people think reading is just looking at it, but it's a whole bunch of things that happen as a result of that. So an example, are they there for a day, a week? Do they come back again? I mean, what is like your schedule?
Yeah, so it's probably very dependent upon the individual reader, right? So sometimes it's an evaluation, sometimes it's an intervention strategy that you work with local educators in maybe back in the high schools. But it's also, with this facility, we're going to be working with educators out in the field to sharpen their skills on new strategies that are really science tested, that are really changing the game for readers all over the state.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. We actually have 2 more questions, and they'll be for President Hush. So we'll start with Representative Rajes.
President Shipp, by the way, if you didn't know, President Shipp is abandoning us, going us to Missouri, but thank you for your time. President Hush, thanks for being here. You know, I know we're looking at the last 2 or 3 years of appropriations, but let's talk about the investment that the state has made in Emporia State. We know what you were up against to do that. How's the right sizing going? Are we at the point now where that's all in place? I mean, we know some. I don't want to get into the inner workings of what's going on that we're hearing about, but just with that investment of like say $12 million or so that has been put in over the last couple of years, has that finally helped to where you feel and your folks feel good that Emporia State's ready to move on?
Appreciate the question. Great question. Yes, we're getting close. It was interesting walking into this situation 3 years ago. I looked at not only at Emporia State from a total activity enterprise from one end of the campus to the other, but also took a step back, and the team that we put together looked at the system. When we looked at the 10-year trailing enrollment decline, it was amazing what we found and what we stepped into, and we were just part of that. At that time, the first year, the numbers, our enrollment decline was less than 3 other regions, okay, over a 5 to 10 year period. You got the community colleges that were having a negative impact as well, and some others. So with this investment, we took the advantage, and we started a process, as everyone's pretty much aware, of looking and reviewing at every activity group on our university. What we did, and we understood, we had gone through previously, 7, 8 years before that, a cut mentality, okay? That might work for an emergency, for a year or 2. That's not a strategy. So I'll give you an example. We cut wrong things. An example is we didn't want to touch maybe one area of campus or the other, so what we did was we took the low-hanging fruit and cut all those. We stopped sending Emporia State University recruiters to high schools. Okay? Well, no one's going to give any pushback on that one. Okay? So it's things like that. We cut instead of taking X amount and being structured and disciplined in deferred maintenance and space on those dollars, we took them and plugged holes elsewhere. That's a reality. So coming to your investment, we had a strategy, and specifically the $9 million investment, year 1. Okay? We were transparent on what we were going to do with it. We were going to, of the $3 million, we're going to go into total reorganization. Okay? throughout the entire campus, and then $6 million was going to go into student activities, reinvesting. Okay, I mean, the other university has spoken so far about what these investment initiatives are doing for the small regional universities, and communities probably apply to that. So last fall, we did it. By the way, everything was set up on a 3-year investment period. I know it's difficult because we all speak on a 12-month budget, okay? Yes, we have to have it. We had to look at it on a 3-year investment, and it's a right-sizing point of view. So we had to look at, sure, you downsized in some areas, but you invested in others and you repaired it. So we had to clean up our own organization, our house, and we've been transparent with it. And our forecast was this coming fall to be platformed on enrollment, okay? There's a lot of argument going on right now, whether it's nationally or statewide, that give or take, we're all fighting for the same students. Okay, there's less students going to college today. And so there's going to be some winners in that. There's going to be some others, like ourselves. We had to reallocate resources. Our last fall, the investments we made, you know, were high education, were high business, you know, and nursing. Okay, we have made those investments, and we had the highest class of freshmen that we've had in years. Same way with transfers. Same way with high school students and graduates. Those are only indicators, okay? And so I think, and you've heard me say it before, I think with today's online presence for students and the availability of that, the 20th day September number that everybody looks at is an old metric. I think it's more of an indicator today. You have to look at on-campus student presence, particularly for the smaller universities. We have to do the right thing for management of the buildings and the assets that we have on behalf of the state. We're showing progress. Indicators, we're not done yet. Work in progress.
All right, and we have time for one more brief question and answer. Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You were talking about the total reorganization that you did, and I know a few years back, K-Board requested that universities look at the programs and degrees and asked you to eliminate some of them that are inefficient and the FTEs that come with them. And that you're one of the universities that took advantage of that. Can you kind of walk us through how that worked and where you are now with that? Because I think that it's caused further problems with the professors suing you. And then just kind of, how do you see this going forward? How are we going to get out of this?
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
You know, we had a head start on it, and again, coming into this 3 years ago, we had a head start on it because KBOR had given the initiative to use a company called RPK. That had been done, I think, different periods for different universities. And we finished up ours in the first years with RPK. And their findings, we didn't feel, and we had already started making our own model, by the way, of program review. And so we came up with ours. We saw RPK's later and what they came up with. Our program review looks at a dozen or so more metrics than what RPK's did. And by the way, KBOR asked me to speak with them to make sure we're all synced up and they understood. So we did. We used our program review. As you know, everyone knows, KBOR had a policy from the past that they reopened and gave us unanimous approval to do. And we'd been right-sizing on the majority of other parts of the university. Now we did the full and right-sized and reallocated resources. And so we did that. Just on the program review, by the way, that was 2 years ago. We have an annual, our model, and we're upgrading it all the time, but our model looks at it annually. So 2 years ago, we made program cuts for about 20% of our programs. We had students in a program. One program, we had 0 students, and we had several employees associated with the program. Another one, we had 1 student in the program and several people. So that's the mentality we took. Yes, we took action, and we're continuing to look at that just this last year, a year ago, because we have an annualized review of our program model. We eliminated 2 more programs. Okay, so that is an ongoing process for us that we're not going to stop. So it's unfortunate that KBOR's policy has been challenged. and for various reasons, and we'll just have to work through that. We're going to continue to do that. It was part of a huge strategy and efficiency play. We have benefited from that, and in fact, we're passing on a lot of the savings. As you all know, you might recall, we did not raise tuition and fees last year, okay? And through these actions that we're doing in savings and efficiencies, we're immediately passing it on. The other thing we've done, we eliminated all application fees for students, okay? We eliminated all parking for students and employees, okay? And we can go down the list. I mean, we've worked at our foundation. We've gone to our external stakeholders because of the things we're doing. Those two record asks that I mentioned earlier for our nursing building, they were a result of our efficiencies and other parties being excited on how we're becoming efficient and being able to hold costs down for students.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move back. Thank you, President Hush, and thank you very much for your answers to those questions. We'll move on to Dr. Richard Linton, President of Kansas State University. Welcome.
Well, good morning. I'd like to first reach out and thank all of you for your incredible support over the last 3 years as I've been here. As we look to become a next-generation land-grant university, my hope and goal here this morning is to provide some insights relative to the progress on these investments over the last few years, as well as the leverage and the return on investments that we've made with these state investments. And are you controlling the? Oh, here we go. Thank you. Okay. So first, an investment was made 3 years ago to be able to support K-State 105. I think, as many of you know, this is an economic engine that we've created in this state, utilizing cooperative extension as the base to be able to build partnerships, create jobs, and provide economic opportunities for the state. I had mentioned in the Higher Education Committee meeting a few weeks ago that in 30-plus years in higher education, this is probably the most impactful statewide extension-led program that I've been involved in. You can see from a leverage standpoint, we've had a $5.5 million leveraged match from communities all around the state, involved in partnerships in every single county and every single community, and a creation of or retention of over 400 jobs in just the first year of the program. And I think most of you know that this is also our #1 priority for moving forward with recurring support for continuation of this program. The Biomanufacturing and Training Education Initiative was a $5 million recurring investment that was made to be able to help provide Kansas State University with opportunities to work on advanced manufacturing, but in the biosciences space and in the agricultural space and the animal disease and diagnostic space. You can see some of the work that we've done. We've completely renovated laboratories and training facilities so that we can adequately work with industries and provide opportunities for private-public partnerships. We've also leveraged this investment already from the federal government with an additional $7 million investment towards facilities that we're building out, and we've hired 6 out of 12 new world-class faculty members, which will help us lead this initiative in moving forward. Of course, like most of my colleagues, the capital renewal funds have been transformational to our campus with some $600 million plus challenges relative to the need for renovation on campus. And you can see that with those dollars, about $10 million we used for tear down of facilities, and then another $22.5 million for repair and renovation, of which we had a $50.8 million match to be able to leverage that support. One of the things that we are learning is when we have state support, we can make incredible things happen. I think from a facility standpoint, the Agricultural Innovation Initiative is a great example. So we had 3 tranches of ARPA dollars. The ARPA dollars, $25 million with no match 3 years ago, $25 with a required 3-to-1 match, or $75 million, and then another $25 million last year with a 1-to-1 match requirement. In total, that's $75 million that will be used for 9 different facilities that are going to be torn down, renovated, or new capital construction. It's transformational for the #1 economic engine in the state of Kansas, which which is agriculture. We've raised $116 million over the last 2 years, which is incredible. In fact, we raised $84 million in 4 months, which is more than 10 years of fundraising by the College of Agriculture. Why? Because it was a really good idea that was needed, but we had support from the state that we could be able to leverage as we talk to our stakeholders and our donors. All of these projects will be completed by August of 2026 before the expiration of the ARPA dollars. The Kansas Water Institute, I think, is also a well-needed initiative which brings together expertise across the entire state to be able to deal with, I think, one of Kansas's biggest challenges, which is water quality and water resource management. And although only 1 year into the program, like the Biosciences Initiative, we've worked on making our space better with renovations and laboratory and training facilities for the industry. We're also in the process of recruiting 12 new world-class faculty members, and already, just a year into it, we've received a $10 million federal grant because we're able to bring people together, 85 people across multiple disciplines, to be able to create an effort to be able to improve water resource management. And that bringing together people for a state need and state support enabled us to be able to get support from the federal government in a competitive grant. Last year as well, there was $250,000 that was provided to Kansas State University to be able to evaluate the need of a veterinary diagnostic laboratory. This is a state laboratory that is housed on Kansas State University to be able to support the animal industry, animal disease and diagnostics, which is incredibly important for the animal industry, the beef industry, and for veterinarians around the state of Kansas. This document was provided this past year to be able to justify the need and support of this diagnostic laboratory. It's a $130 million investment that I believe the state of Kansas is going to need to continue to be competitive in this space. Some of my colleagues have already mentioned the importance of need-based aid. You can see for Kansas State University, the total investment from the state was $11.1 million over the last 3 years, and you can see over 2,000 students were positively impacted by that investment, and a 28% increase in students receiving need-based aid, which is really important when you look at the number one issue when we're trying to be able to recruit students is student affordability and the challenge of student debt. So this helps us tremendously, especially for Kansas-based residents. Our cost per full-time equivalent student is just about $9,000, which is a very low cost when you compare to other land-grant institutions in the country. I'll spend a little less time on these two, but just to let you know that these are also very important. I think from a cybersecurity standpoint, we've received $6 million over the past 3 years to be able to help us with protection of our cyberspace at Kansas State University. I think we all recognize and remember last January, we were impacted by one of the largest cyber attacks, I think, ever in higher education. And for the state, and for Kansas State University, that's transversed into about an $8 million recurring investment in order for us to be able to protect our systems statewide and nationwide at Kansas State. So this investment has been critically important to be able to match and partner with our investment that we're making at Kansas State. The NIST playbook and the Student Success Playbook has also been incredibly important for recruiting, retaining, and ensuring that our students are successful. When I came to Kansas State University, we were 8 years of declining enrollment, a 25% decrease in enrollment. It was the bottom of the bottom. I will say with your investment and our great strategy on campus and with things like the NIST playbook, we've been able to completely turn that around. We are now over 20,000 students for the first time in a decade, with the highest increase in students shown in the last year. It's just been a tremendous impact because of the strategy and the investment that the state of Kansas has made in Kansas State. So with that ends my testimony. Again, from the president of Kansas State University, I appreciate your support of higher education and your support of Kansas State University. Thank you.
All right, thank you, President Linton. And we're going to, next up, we have Dr. Doug Gerard, of the Chancellor of University of Kansas. And we all noticed that beautiful purple tie.
I noticed that too.
So we wanted, the chairman wanted to make sure that I made note of that, so welcome.
It's actually red and blue. When you put them together, you get purple.
I gotcha.
Did you notice his blue and red tie?
Right, perfect. Welcome.
Thank you, committee, and thank you for having us. Just echo the comments of my colleagues that we're most appreciative in the investment that you all make in higher education. And I think the theme that you're hearing today is the investment is certainly in higher education. It's in our students, but actually it's in the state of Kansas. And we'll talk a little bit about the economic benefits of that. You've already heard a lot of that today already. But I just wanted to, and you've got slides in front of you. I want to just, when you look at those early slides, you'll see you want to touch a little bit on how we continue to drive the economy of the state. And then I'll touch on those investments that you have made. We just completed our like cast economic impact. The University of Kansas in all its forms has a $15 billion of annual activity in the state, but actually, and that's a lot of the number that you'll hear from a lot of those studies. The one that's important is actually the net impact, meaning the $8 billion that occurs in the state because of the actual activity of above and beyond what just the money passes around inside the state. And that's that would be the 9th largest economic sector in the state of Kansas if it were an economic sector by itself. And we certainly do this, as do my colleagues, in many different ways. Obviously, there's a workforce component. We create companies. We've created over 50 companies ourselves. The research dollars that we bring into the state, over $500 million last year, generates jobs, but also generates great ideas and companies. 40% of our philanthropy comes from outside of the state of Kansas into the state of Kansas to invest in our university and our state. And we continue to be one of the #1 tourism drivers for the state of Kansas as well, with over 400,000 visitors last year. So we appreciate the investments that you make, but the real investments in our state is you're making those. To touch on the investments that have been made, you've heard a number of these are across all the Border Regents institutions. I'll touch on those as well, but also some are obviously very specific to KU, and we'll touch on each of these. You'll probably remember the Cancer Center building. We came to this, actually the donor community came to the state of Kansas with $75 million as a challenge grant. And then the state stepped up and matched that challenge grant to create a $150 million NIDUS for that. This is a $500 to $600 million project to date. We've raised over $250 million towards that. We also have some bonding in front of the state this session to help us finish out the university side of that. The hospital will be doing the same to finish out their side of that. We hope to break ground on this facility late spring. And that will be game-changing for our state, both in advancing cancer care, but also advancing the discoveries to help prevent this and cure this disease. So as you've seen in many of the presentations, an investment by the state has an incredible return. So out of that $75 million investment, we will have a $500 to $600 million facility that will serve this state for generations. You already heard great conversations around the cybersecurity piece. We likewise have invested to enhance and beef up our security systems across. And in our world, that includes health care, that includes student data, but critically, it includes research data that is of great interest to actors around the world. And so we, like our colleagues, have invested pretty heavily to make sure that we can be as strong as we can be in this space. And I say strong as you can be because we could spend 10 times that on cyber, and we all could. And it's going to be an ongoing challenge for us. The capital renewal funds have been critical to us, like it has with our colleagues. Particularly President Linton and I have collectively buildings, if we combine them, of 300 years of age. And so we've got an aging infrastructure that we're dealing with. But again, leveraging what the state has put forward, in our case, $21 million over the last several years towards this has allowed us to actually invest an additional $46 million on top of that towards a whole number of different projects around our campuses, and it's been really critical to help us get caught up in that space. I would just comment that the bill that was passed last year to start this year is a recurring 5-year investment for this to allow us to really catch up on that across all our campuses, and hope that will get some traction or be continued supported going forward. One of the most interesting investments the state has made with ARPA dollars through economic development was investment in our Gateway project. It was an original allotment of $35 million to plan and develop, and then a follow-on $50 million that required a 3-to-1 match. So we had to raise $150 million to draw down that $50 million. But that was a combination of our stadium, which really we raised the funds to do that part of it. The state side has gone into the building of the largest conference center in the region, and the kitchen and all the facilities that go with that. This project will be completed in August. Incredible, just over 18 months from start to finish, and will come online this coming fall. As we move forward into phase 2, which will actually include a hotel, student housing, some condominiums, parking, and some retail space, we hope to start that in next December. That entire project, when it's done, is about $760 million. And so again, the state investment in this was 11% of that budget to get it started, but the return will be over $350 million raised through philanthropy and then significant private investment as well. And this will generate $1.4 billion of economic activity over the next 20 years. So again, an investment that really is going to drive economic impact to our region for a long period of time, and we really thank you for your forethought and innovation on that. You've heard a lot about the student need-based aid and how important that's been. At KU this year, we provide about $87 million of financial aid. So what we received from the state, we were able to layer on top of that and really increase the amount of aid we were able to get to those who need it the most. And that, like K-State, has really translated to enrollment growth. 2 years ago, we had an 18% growth in our freshman class year over year to the biggest freshman class in the history of the university. We replicated that this year. We now have over 30,000 students, the highest number in the history of the university. And that's made possible by investments. And you may recall during those conversations, where we started was Kansas was 47th out of 50 states in what they provide for need-based aid. So this investment has really elevated that. We're not quite to the midpoint yet, but we're far better than we were. And I think you're already seeing the impact of that across our universities, so thank you for that. And we continue to work hard to try and be really good stewards of the funds that you provide us on a student per basis aid. I do want to really thank you, though, for the investment at the medical center. And you can see that the amount of state dollars that go to the medical center is significant per student. The cost-educated medical student is about $110,000 a year. And so the student portion of that still is significant, and it's about just over $40,000 a year on their side. The state puts in just over $40,000. Our average student debt right now is about $190,000. That's about national average. So we think that's we appreciate the investment. It's doable. It's managing, and it's working for us. So we're really appreciative of that. But we continue to try and be the best scholars we can with that. You've heard a lot about the National Institute for Student Success Playbook, again, a KBOR-wide effort that has really, I think, benefited all of us. It's been a great investment in everything from advising to tools to help us identify students when they start to struggle before they fail, so that we can intervene and help them get the services that they need, among other things. And that certainly has helped us, as I talked about the enrollment side of that. Retention leads to growth in enrollment. If that student doesn't leave after the first year or the second year, that actually adds to your enrollment number, so it does matter. But importantly, we've had a 2 to 3% increase just in a couple of years in our graduation and retention rates. And so we know this works. It's been proven across the country, and it's certainly working here in Kansas, so a very worthwhile investment. You'll hear more about this, I'm sure, from President Muma when he gives his report on Wichita State, but this is an incredible investment for South Central Kansas and healthcare in the state of Kansas, which was a combined investment in both Wichita State and KU Med down in Wichita to create a new campus there. Both of us had aging facilities. And this is also part of a great urban renewal story because it's right downtown Wichita. This project is moving along along very quickly and really will locate our School of Medicine, our School of Pharmacy with Wichita State's health professions programs, all in the same facility to really leverage that facility for all of us, but really to also be able to provide interdisciplinary education in healthcare, which is critical. It also will allow us to grow our School of Medicine, in particular in the Wichita area. That will become a full 4-year medical school program down there for us, which will help us be able to grow the number of physicians headed out into the state. There's a couple things that run through KU that aren't what we usually think about as the University of Kansas. They're largely pass-throughs for us, but the Kansas Geological Survey, which had not had an increase in investment in over 23 years, got some additional funds, mostly for manpower, to build out additional people in the water area. They monitor about 1,600 wells across the state, mostly in the Ogallala Aquifer, and to help figure out better uses of water for that, but also in energy and an IT infrastructure to allow energy companies and drilling companies to use the Geological Survey's database to better run their companies. So that's been a great investment, and Jay Calvis, who runs that organization, is really doing an outstanding job for the state. KU is also responsible for the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center in Yoder, and you made an additional investment of $20 million of ARPA funds in that, really to build a dormitory. So they're based in Yoder, but they serve the entire state for law enforcement, and we train about 1,000 new law enforcement officers every year, but we also do continuing education to over 12,000 law enforcement officers around the state. Again, it's somewhat of a pass-through, although it is linked into our School of Professional Studies, but a great asset to the state, and that investment is going to really help them increase the number of law enforcement officers that they can train. And then lastly, just want to say thank you for all what you're doing. What's before you this year, in our case, is, as with KBOR, is some requests for funds for the core, or the base, if you will, to address inflation and increased cost. That has a direct impact on affordability, which is why the Board of Regents brought that request forward. And then merit increases for our employees. Every one of our institutions woefully behind our peers in salaries. You may recall last year we got 50% of the raise that the rest of the state got. And then before that, we've actually been left out of state raises in the past. So that has, we fund the majority of those increases, but the state portion of that's critical. So we hope you will consider that. The medical student loan program is a for service. Again, it's a pass-through, but it really is debt relief for medical students in exchange for year to go out and serve the community. We have a proposal to expand that, to increase physicians in rural Kansas, and then to continue the campus restoration fund will be critical for all of us. So with that, I'll take questions at the end, I assume.
Yes, thank you, Chancellor. We appreciate that. All right, committee, next up we have Dr. Julianne Mazachek, President and Chief Executive Officer of Washburn University. Welcome. And last but not least will be President Muma.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today, and for listening to the stories about what we are accomplishing on our campuses. And I want to start off because I do look a little different than the other universities that are presenting today. We are governed by an independent board, the Washburn Board of Regents, and we are coordinated by the Kansas Board of Regents. And we don't participate in some of the funds that are available to other universities, the capital renewal funds, the deferred maintenance funds, or any type of funds that have to do with salaries and wages. And so we are just slightly different, and you'll notice that when I go through the items that that are supported. So let me see if I can do this. Where am I pointing? Right here? Okay, great. All righty, so I won't spend a lot of time on this slide. You can read that in the future. And I want to pay mostly attention to the appropriations that we've received. And so over these last years, we've received student success dollars. I will say we've been doing this work for years, and we know the difference it makes for students when we put resources into supporting them. We are nationally recognized for our efforts in the student success area. We have a regular program where we reach out and check on individual students who are struggling and to help them figure out how to stay in class and on track. We have a high proportion of of our students, the majority of our students are first-generation students, and we have found that that makes a difference in how we're able to retain them, which we retain in an open access institution at the rate of nearly 70%, and that we graduate. We've been able to increase our graduation rate significantly over these last years. We are an open access institution, and we know that this compares favorably across the country, and we have top performance in this area. We do have additional programming to help students learn how to study, offer tutors, frequent check-ins, and we do have an intense advising model. You have contributed a little over $1 million a year for that, and we are truly appreciative of that. The next item I wanted to talk about was the Kansas Comprehensive Grant, and we have received $8.6 million over the last 3 years. When we combine it with our private and our university scholarships, about 75% of our overall students receive a scholarship, and nearly 2,000 of our students are directly eligible for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant. We do have the lowest student debt for public regionals in our region, Midwest region. We are 5th, and we are working very diligently to be the top in lowest debt. We do focus quite a bit on our ability to stay affordable so that students who might not be able to choose college are finding a way into our classrooms to be able to pursue their educational goals and dreams. And we believe that we are having success in that area through our scholarship programs and especially the support from the state for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant. The past 3 years of appropriations, they will look a little different for us than for other institutions. I'm going to talk about both Washburn University and Washburn Tech. Those both fall under our umbrella of our institution. And so we have received $2.1 million in demolition funds, and I do want to say, just as others have said, how important those have been. We have been able to really look at our facilities and determine older facilities, if those can be either taken offline or if they can be replaced with more efficient facilities in the future. And we are in the process of removing those dollars will help us remove about 61,000 square feet off of our campus, which is significant for us. We will tear down the last part. We'll use the last part of those demolition funds this summer when we tear down one of our buildings in the middle of campus and open it up for green space, actually. We also received $3 million in ARPA funds in fiscal year 23, and we are using that to renovate a building whereby the building that we're taking down. We are moving all of those individuals, the programs, the faculty and staff into a building that we are renovating right now, which was our former library, and that will happen this summer, actually. So we appreciate those funds. They've made a tremendous difference. We've matched those funds. And I will tell you, I wouldn't have been able to tell you this at the very beginning of the session, but that renovation is just the beginning of, some of you may have heard, and I'll talk more about it next year, but we received a large gift that we will be able to construct and begin to plan for a building that has an interdisciplinary health education. We'll bring all of our health programs together, and this will be the core of that building that we're investing in right now for our allied health programs, and so we're very excited about that. And then cybersecurity, we too are grateful for the funds that you've allowed for each of us to be able to invest in those programs and to ensure that we are able to protect our information. And so we've implemented Duo for students, we've upgraded our firewall, and then we've participated with the state in some of the upgraded software to ensure that we're able to protect our data. And then I'd like to talk just a little bit about the appropriations for Washburn Tech. You did last year give us $3 million to support a manufacturing institute. With those funds, we were able to purchase a former Kmart property, which has been vacant for about 10 years. And it will become our new Washburn Manufacturing Training Center. Not only will it enhance our community, but it allowed us to double the size of the space that we will have available and reduce the cost of the project by about 25%. So we're very grateful for those funds. You also granted through Tech $1.2 million. We finished the second floor of our Tech East program. We will expand programs in that service area, and that will open actually next month. We're very excited about that. And then you also granted some capital outlay funds that we are going to put towards our north campus that I was just speaking about, our new manufacturing center that will allow us to buy equipment for those new programs, and we're grateful for that. And then, of course, you invested in cybersecurity and student success, and then the apprenticeship and custom training program. We have 50 students right now. We are building that program out. We have 50 students that are involved in our apprenticeship program, and then we have trained with custom training 300 individual students during this past year. So we're grateful for all of that support. I did want to share just a little bit around what some of those trainings are, but in the interest of time, I will not do that today. But if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer that. And then finally, I have to brag just a little bit. So we have had an overall increase in our enrollment on our campus. Over the last 2 years, we've grown by 15% in our total enrollment. We've had 2 incoming classes that are record-setting for the history of our institution. We are primarily focused on serving Kansas students. And we really are focused on, most of our students are from Northeast Kansas, Shawnee County. Over half of our students are from the Shawnee County area. We have really been focused over these last few years on increasing the college growing rate. In Shawnee County, we've seen a decrease just as the state has, and probably even a little bit more steep. And so we've been working with high schools and to help students find that there is a pathway to college, not just Washburn, to any college in the state of Kansas, but we want students to know that that's an option for them. And so we've been working on that. And then we have been working on affordability. You've heard all of us talk about that. We know that finances is often the #1 hurdle for students to choose to pursue higher education. And we've been focused on finding scholarship pathways and other ways that students can find an affordable way to achieve those educational goals and dreams. And then finally, Washburn's request this year is to increase our municipal operating grant. And I'm grateful to the University of Kansas for including us on your chart. Thank you. We are the lowest supported institution, public university in the state per student. And this year we are asking for an increase in our municipal operating grant. And as we continue to grow, we know that this will be imperative to us to support students and provide the educational experience that they deserve. And so how do we anticipate using those funds? We'll continue to focus on student success because many of our students, as I mentioned, are first generation. And that means that the supports that are needed for additional student growth require growth on our campus. We are going to work diligently to develop those pathways with our high school and the pre-college programs that help students be ready and be able to be successful when they do choose to pursue higher education. Creating cybersecurity programs, artificial intelligence programs, focusing on the key areas that we focus on. Healthcare is about 40% of our majors on our campus, and continuing to support that and make sure that our students are ready for the workforce of tomorrow. We are enhancing advanced manufacturing, expanding logistics, as those in our community and in Northeast Kansas are the primary sector that is growing and is our #1 sector. And then finally, expanding our education program, and several of us have talked about that today, to overcome some of the shortage in our teaching. And we've actually doubled the size of our program over the last 2 years, and we expect to double it again. We have a small program, but it's very important to our local community that we're able to graduate students that are ready to be in their classrooms. And then finally, the support for need-based aid, we are grateful for that, and we hope that it will continue, and for student success and cybersecurity. And then I always have to say that any continued support for tech and Excel and CTE is imperative to the future of not only our communities, but to our businesses and to the workforce of tomorrow. And I can stand for questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam President. We'll go ahead and move on to Wichita State University and then open up for questions after the final presentation by Dr. Richard Muma, the president of Wichita State University. Welcome to committee.
Saving the last for best. You all have this PowerPoint, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here today with you. And if you go to slide 2 in your packet, you'll notice that what our goals and aspirations are and our priorities. And as you may know, I've told you this before, that WSU strives to be an innovative urban public research university. And that means two things: that we're there to provide affordable, accessible education to anybody who wants to go to school. And then we help our community solve problems through research, through creative activities, and other service initiatives. But every day we're driven by these three priorities: access and affordability, feeding the talent pipeline, and increasing economic prosperity for our community. So if we go to the next slide, slide 3. First and foremost, we're growing as an institution. We have been for several years, both on our campus and the WSU Tech campus. When we affiliated with WSU Tech, that really sparked an additional point of growth in our university's history. And this is because of several reasons beyond WSU Tech. Sedgwick County is growing, and we're prioritizing citizens there. We're keeping our price point down. If you go to slide 4, making sure that we're affordable compared to our peers, where we're recruiting students from. And we're using need-based aid that you're giving us, along with our other own institutional dollars, to invest in these students. We're helping fill that gap that students have and financial need to go to college. So from the funds that you have approved over the last 3 years, for us that's about $8 million. We've increased the population of students awarded by additional 7%. That's about 3,047 students. That's not near enough, given all the need that we have in our community. Many of our students come from low-income backgrounds or they're first-generation students. That's the future. That's who all of us are recruiting from. You can see on slide 5 that Kansas is at the bottom per FTE spending in our region. Although we're very appreciative of what you've done, and it's been phenomenal, and you've heard that from other presidents, we need more. And you'll see that this also leads to filling jobs and creating more jobs. Just in Sedgwick County alone, there's 83,000 people who have the highest educational attainment between the ages 25 and 35 as a high school diploma. We know all the jobs of the future are going to need something beyond high school. And there's 500,000 in the state. So we support additional budget to bring Kansas to the regional state average, and that turns out to be about $14 million of additional ongoing dollars. States all around us are doing this to help fill the needs in their states and to drive talent. And not addressing this really does put us at more of a competitive disadvantage. We also support the additional $6.4 million request to continue support retention and student success, and we appreciate you putting that in your budget, making sure that students, once we recruit them, that they stay and they graduate. And so if you look on slide 6, you see that from the $1.5 million that we received this past couple of years, you can see those outcomes. You can see the increased success will keep them progressing in college. We believe once we fully implement the necessary initiatives around our student success programs, this will eventually pay for itself because we'll have more students staying and continue to persist at a higher rate. So this brings me to the second priority and kind of a related priority, and that's filling the talent pipeline. And I know that you all are concerned about that. We think we're doing a good job of this, of already the funds that you're giving us. Our enrollment growth is fueling this. About 70% of our undergraduate students are from South Central region and are staying in Kansas when they graduate. Nearly all of WSU Tech students are staying in Kansas and working when they graduate. But as Kansas is not a growing population, you can go to slide 7, you'll see that we have expanded our recruitment efforts initially up and down the I-35 corridor, and now we've expanded it beyond that. And this has really helped grow our enrollment. About 40% increase in people coming from those areas in those states to WSU. And the good thing about it is, in our applied learning model, is that they're getting connected to our opportunities that we have on the innovation campus and other partners in the community, and they're staying to work after graduation. So just those students, out-of-state students, nearly half of them are staying and working in Kansas. So that gets them connected to our business partners with our applied learning model. If you look at slides 8 and 9, you can see some of the data there. It's given students availability of hands-on and jobs in all the disciplines, and over 9,000 students are earning about $33 million working with those partners. And once hired, they have a shortened time frame for getting trained and onboarded, and they're just creating a lot more value for those businesses. So we thank you for the support that you provided us this past year, $5 million, to help us even further this. So for the final priority, increasing economic prosperity for our community and state, we do this by solving pressing issues in our community, like NIAR is doing for aviation. Chancellor mentioned the biomedical campus. If you look in slides 10 and 11, we're trying to create a healthcare corridor where we attract additional companies who want to partner with us. That facility is currently under construction. You have all invested heavily in that facility, and we thank you very much for that. Because of a severe lack of oral health care providers in Kansas, we are exploring what that might look like as Kansas's first dental school with Fort Hays State University. As you know, there are severe shortages in dentists throughout the state, especially in western Kansas, so that's the reason why we've started having conversations with Fort Hays about how we could make that a reality. So a few measures of success in this area. If you look on slide 12, you'll see that we've had a 161% increase in R&D expenditures since 2020. For every dollar that you have invested, 17 has returned, creating over 3,300 jobs on the Innovation Campus in our community the last 5 years. This past year, we surpassed $366 million in research expenditures. A significant portion of that funding is with our industry partners, helping them solve some of their most pressing issues, and we're expecting to surpass $400 million this year. On slide 13, sort of a direct outcome of that, I just wanted you to make sure you understood. Now we're number 1 in aerospace R&D, number 2 in industry-funded engineering R&D, number 6 in total industry-funded R&D, and number 8 in engineering funding overall in the country, and number 14 in Department of Defense R&D funding. I wanted to say a few things about compensation. And I know that you all know this is always going to be an issue and has been an issue for a long time. That's why we started on our own, internally allocating towards a new market-based compensation program 3 years ago. We're trying to get our employees to 50% of the market median. Nothing more dramatic than that. And we've invested $12 million so far through internal reallocation and revenues from enrollment growth. That's helped, but we still pay our employees 16% less compared to market. We're losing faculty to our peers. A lot of faculty are going to Texas. So now we're embarking on an additional plan on our own to close that gap in 5 years. And for us, that gap, that 16%, is $25 million. And we're going to try to do that over 5 years. This means more internal reallocation through cuts, position reviews, efficiencies, and other kinds of things. I'm telling you this because we're willing to make hard decisions, but having some additional investment from you all, which I thank you for putting that in your budget, will allow us to accelerate that and prevent us from losing faculty further. And these are faculty that have research programs that are taking those to other states. So in closing, slide 14, we have ample evidence of how we are using the resources that you're already giving us to provide affordable, accessible education, filling the talent pipeline, increasing economic prosperity for our state. So we thank you very much for those resources. And if you go to the last slide, you'll see the things that we believe should be prioritized, and that's need-based aid and the student success dollars, a feasibility study to help us design the future dental school, your continued investment in cybersecurity, as I said already, employee compensation, and investment in technical education for WSU Tech so they can continue the good work that they do. So that's the last slide. There might be one other slide. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Muma. So, committee, if you would happen to look at the Senate calendar, all the presidents and the chancellor need to be up at Senate Ways and Means at 10:30. So I apologize that we're going to have to limit the questions for about 5 minutes. But if you have a question, please indicate which administrator that you want to have that question directed to. And so right now, I would ask that Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can fill as much time as you want. This is a target-rich environment for me right now. But this is actually, to start off with anyway, kind of a jump ball, really. Actually, I'd eventually like input from everyone. Everyone has mentioned, I think every single person mentioned that the enrollment has gone up for your institutions. That's fantastic. I'm certainly glad to hear it. What percentage of that is online and what percentage is in person? That's going to lead me to several other questions, I believe, but
Dr. Muma?
whoever would like to answer.
We have a very targeted online program. Only 10% of our programs are offered in that way.
Okay. Dr. Litton?
I would say the same for Kansas State University. Very small percentages online. We feel like at Kansas State that face-to-face, one-on-one interaction is critically important for who we are. And if you look at the student experience, that's a big part of what's important for us.
In the sake of time, I'd say ditto. It's almost all in person, our growth.
Right. If I could.
Representative Sutton.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're looking at about a 10% growth, and the enrollment numbers look like they were less than a 10% growth. So that leads me to think that the in-person body count isn't any different and perhaps could be declining. Could anyone want to speak to that one?
Chancellor?
There's a couple things in that. So FTE is full-time equivalents, so that could be somebody part-time. 2 people part-time could make up 1 FTE. Our growth was actually of our freshman class. I just want to make sure I didn't misquote you, mislead you. Our freshman class grew 18% year over year. We've maintained that. We graduated a very small class. We'll do that again. So the total over enrollment growth is probably closer to 10% if you take the whole body.
President Litton.
Yeah, I would say for us, it's actually an increase in people on campuses, but Salina, Olathe, and the Manhattan, Kansas, are really a better number to look at is the housing and dining numbers, and the trend of those numbers over the last 3 years, and at least for K-State, it's considerably higher.
Thank you. And if other people have questions, feel free. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And because of time, if you and all the institutions could give us, give the chairman how the cuts have been, especially with the research institutions for aviation, medical, agriculture, and then also our regional institutions, if you're having any impact of kind of what DOGE has done as far as that. So, I don't know if we have time to answer that, or if they could at least send us that, we could share that with the committee.
We got 2 that are eager to answer that question right now. So, Dr. Muma.
So we have a small USAID grant that has been stopped working on, and then most recently an EPA grant on environmental justice. Those are the 2 right now that we've received notice that we need to stop working on.
Dr. Litton.
I think the impact for K-State is much larger. For us right now, the running tally is about $119 million, of which about $100 million of that is with USAID funding for international agriculture projects. So it's a tremendous impact.
So off of the representative's question, if you could give us a detailed list and send that to my office, and then we can forward out to all the committee members so that we're aware of the cuts that have been made. Chancellor?
Ours have been mostly through Department of Ed, where we've had multiple stop work orders on several grants, particularly our Department of Special Education, and then the NIH directive, which is currently under a temporary restraining order, but the economic impact of that, if implemented, would be close to $35 million just for the NIH. We haven't heard from the NSF yet.
All right, thank you. But like I said, if you could give us the detailed information, for the sake of time and getting you guys up to Senate Ways and Means, we're going to have to hold off questions because we're already, you're 6 minutes late. I know Senate doesn't usually start on time, but we'll see if that changes today. So if you have any other questions, just directly get in contact with the universities and the other institutions because we did go over a little bit on time and they have to get up to Senate Ways and Means. So until tomorrow, we are adjourned.